Hello, good morning, everybody. Today is the 14th of March 2026, and it's the 223rd, 223rd session of Mindfulness for Beginners in English Medium, conducted by the Nissarana Vanaya. I would like to welcome Venerable Omagama DhammaKusala Thero for this session, as usual, and also those who are joining with us today live on Zoom, and those who have joined the session via the YouTube live stream, which is happening right now, and those who are going to download this to watch it later. And our program commences as usual with the in-session practice of mindfulness guided by Venerable DhammaKusala Thero. Then we will move on to the talk on today's topic, which is the beautiful lie. The beautiful lie, yes. So finally, we will be moving to Q&A and reports from listeners, and guidance will be given by Venerable DhammaKusala Thero once again. So that's the program lineup for you today. So without further delay, I would now like to invite Venerable DhammaKusala Thero to conduct the in-session practice of mindfulness.
Thanks, Darindu. Hello. Let's start with a few minutes of mindful practice. And today I thought we can do a walking session. For this, feel free to turn on video and join more actively. And we select some space where we are able to walk comfortably. Once you select that space, you start walking back and forth. And while walking, you try to feel your steps. Feel the texture, temperature of the ground. Feel which parts of your foot is touching the ground. That way you try to be with the steps while walking. Time to time, you get carried away with various thoughts surrounding sounds, sights, and you forget the feet. But that's okay. Repetitively, you can realize it and once again return your attention to the steps. So that way, let's go for a walking session. And during this time, we try to be with our steps, keep our attention with the steps. That's the whole idea. You get distracted, but once again, you can remember the steps. So all of us, let's go for a walking session. And when you hear the bell sound, you can return back to your seats. Okay, everyone, that's our time to do mindful walking today. With that, you can come back to your seats. Tarindu, you can take off.
Thank you, Saranasa. All right, so our in-session practice of mindfulness is done for the day. And next is the Dhamma talk based on the topic of this week, which is the beautiful lie. I would like to invite once again Venerable DhammaKusala Thero for the Dhamma talk. Saranasa.
Okay, everyone. So this topic, it's a continuation from last time. And today, let's take some time to discuss another aspect of the same topic. Now, it talks about the world. And usually, we deal with the world, we see other people, and we see other things. So our minds are quite occupied with the surrounding world. And when you go watch news or when you search on social media, it can be quite stressful because the world is burning. The world seems to be falling apart. Many things are happening and people, they are worried that this will end in another world war. Right? So that way, the world can be a difficult place and it can disturb us. It can create a lot of confusion in our mind. So that's the traditional way of seeing the world, traditional way of viewing the world. And when we do that, stress, anxiety is quite natural. So what's the proper approach to see the world, to view the world? If we take a reference from one of the discourses, Buddhist discourses, and in that particular sutta, Buddha is talking with a monk who is named as Kaccayanagotta. So in this particular discourse, Buddha explains the correct way to view the world. And he says that if you see the world as it exists, then that's an error. Usually people are seeing the world in a dual manner. The world relies on duality. So what's the duality? The first end would be seeing the world as it exists. The world is real. Seeing the world as a fixed reality. Right? So this is one end of the duality. So if you see the world as it exists, if you deal with the world as a fixed reality, then stress, anxiety, suffering is unavoidable. Usually that's our view towards the world. We see it as a fixed reality. We try to maintain it without impermanence. All the family members, they have to be in good health. They can't get into accidents. They have to be safe all the time. And whatever the things that you have created for yourself, you want to protect them. Right? So that way, seeing the world as a fixed reality, taking it as the world exists, that would be one end or one extreme of this duality. And naturally, you become a pleasure-seeking person. It says self-indulgence. You see the world as a fixed reality. You view it as it exists. And naturally, you want to pleasure seek. You want to have different experiences. You want to spend some quality time with your family members. You want to go travel, see the world. Self-indulgence naturally comes. And that's how many people, they see the world. They want to go travel and see the world. They want to make sure that their family members are always in good health and safe. So that way, they deal with this world as a fixed reality. So that would be one extreme of the duality, seeing the world as it exists. Then Buddha goes on to explain the other extreme, seeing the world as it doesn't exist. That would be the other extreme. Usually what happens is that you go pleasure seek, you self-indulge, and at a certain time you get frustrated and start hating the world, wishing that it doesn't exist, seeing as it's nothing. Right? So that extreme is another part of the same duality. And that's why Buddha says the world relies on duality. Either it exists or it does not exist. That duality, those two extremes, are the usual way of seeing the world. A person who goes on pleasure seeking, at a certain stage, they get frustrated and start hating the world. It is called as self-mortification. Self-indulgence versus self-mortification. Now you are in a way try to seek pain. Try to hurt yourself. Try to hurt the surrounding. A lot of complaining, anger appears. So that way, the world relies on duality. And we have heard that story about sour grapes. The fox wanted to taste the grapes, enjoy the grapes, tried to reach them in many different ways, and eventually got frustrated and end up calling them sour grapes. They are no good. Right? So that's what happens to us as well. We go pleasure seeking, self-indulgence, and at a certain point of life, we get frustrated and start self-mortification. Both of these extremes are related to the world. Both of these extremes, this is how the world relies. The world relies on duality. And I'm sure even all of you, at a certain stage of your life, you have experienced both of these extremes. Usually when we are younger, we go on pleasure seek, self-indulgence, and at a stage when you probably middle ages, you get frustrated and start self-mortification. So according to Buddha's view, both of these extremes, not correct, not accurate, they are errors. Both of these extremes are errors. Some time back, maybe a few days ago, we got this interesting email, and that was from one of the, I think, foreign lady from Germany. And she was writing about applying to become a nun. That was the request. And on that email, it's like a job application. There was a CV attached, all the certificates were there, and explaining the background, what will she bring to the table, right? All those skills, values are given and applied for the job of a nun, right? So that's how the world sees things. They get frustrated with pleasure seeking. They get frustrated with all the education work. And at a certain stage, they feel like applying for the other extreme, right? So you have to present your qualifications. You have to do a proper CV and send it. That's how the mind works, right? So it's not easy to understand what is the correct way of viewing the world. If this is the duality, what's the way to view the world? That's the question that we have. Our mind usually relies on the duality. The world relies on the duality, either self-indulgence or self-mortification. Those two are the ways of seeing it. There's no other way, no other option. Right? According to our mind, that's how we should see it. So it's interesting to talk about what is the proper way to view the world. What's the correct way? If you see it as it exists, then that's an error. If you see it as it doesn't exist, then that too is an error. So what's the best way? What's the proper way to see the world, to view the world? And that one, you can't directly answer it. So more and more confusion comes. Usually our minds, they work in this binary logic. Either it has to be 0 or 1. Binary. That's how the mind works. That's how the education system works. That's how the society works. If you don't say yes, then the answer must be no. Right? So that's how we see it. So our binary minds, it's like the minds that are used to duality. It's difficult to understand the correct way to view the world. If we say the world is a fixed reality, then that's an error. If we say the world doesn't exist, there is nothing, then that too is an error. Self-indulgence or self-mortification. Right? So the correct way to view the world, you can't really answer it directly. You can't really explain it directly. So since you can't explain it properly, since you can't answer it properly, it creates a lot of confusion. That's true, but that's the very practice. Time after time, our mind goes on to one of these extremes. Even the meditators, they find it time to time. Sometimes they feel like pleasure seeking once again. They are saying, I'm not much interested in the practice. I feel like going out. I feel like traveling. I feel like spending time with people. Right? Then at a certain phase, once again, they get distracted with all the people and all the pleasure seeking. And they say, I feel distancing myself from the world. I feel like spending alone time. I feel like I like my own company. So that way, time to time, we go to the extreme that says the world exists, and time to time, we go to the extreme that says the world doesn't exist. But the correct way to view the world, you have to only experience it. Understand through experience with the practice. Otherwise, if I try to explain it, saying this is the proper way to view the world, then that explanation is an error. Right? So, what is the correct way? The correct way, you can't directly answer it, you can't directly explain it. Instead, you have to encourage people to continue with their meditation practice. And if they continue, they get to experience. They understand through experience what's the way to view the world. Once again, we have to say, if you say the world exists, then that too is not the correct way. If you say the world doesn't exist, that's also an error. Instead, there's a middle way, there's a different way to experience the world, different way to understand the world. Right? So that understanding, that experience should come through the practice. Only by doing the practice, you can understand this. What's the correct way? What's the middle path? If you say the world exists, it's an error. If you say the world doesn't exist, that too is an error. Instead, there's a different way, a middle way, which our binary minds can't understand. Our dual minds struggle to understand it. But when you continue your practice, as a result, you get to experience it in your practice, and through that experience, you can understand. The problem for many people is that they don't spend enough time with the practice. They simply continue for some time, couple of weeks. They do few sessions, and at the end of those 2 weeks, they say that the practice doesn't work. Or sometimes they go to a retreat, they spend few days there, and they go home and forget about the practice till the next year retreat. Right? So this is how many people are practicing. So with that level of practice, you will not be able to get anywhere. Of course, the meditation is valuable. Of course, you feel like, I should do this, but you are not really putting real effort. So without putting real effort, you won't be able to understand, you won't be able to experience how the practice works. And it is unfair for you to say that the practice doesn't work without really trying it. It's like you are thinking about swimming, you are doing all the steps of analysis about the swimming, you are watching videos on YouTube how to swim, but you never get into water. That's not the way. That's a failure. Because although you study, although you learn a lot about swimming, when you really get into the water, you understand how different the real swimming is. Right? So without getting into the water, you can't really experience what swimming is. So that's what happens to many people. They talk a lot about practice. They participate in the discussions. They read textbooks, scripture, learning the Dhamma, but they never practice. Rarely they spend some time doing their walking, sitting practice. So how can you get anywhere with that type of approach? Right? So you have to gather some practice hours. That's the way. For a newcomer, we say, okay, you do few minutes of walking, sitting, try that. Then they come and say, okay, I did 10 minutes and my mind is all over the place. I could notice the steps, but I couldn't keep my attention there. Right? So that type of a person, a newcomer, we have to encourage them. Okay, you do at least like 1 hour of walking, sitting practice. He might take probably a week to complete 1 hour. But at least you somehow complete 1 hour of walking, sitting practice. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. That way, little by little, you gather an hour. And when they spend an hour doing the walking, sitting practice, they get some idea. They understand a little how the practice works. And when they reach 1 hour, you have to tell them, okay, you somehow continue and try to reach at least like 10 hours. Now you can see the improvement when you spend some time. Now you have to spend more time and try to reach at least like 10 hours of practice. 10 hours, it feels like a lot for a beginner. But if they simply spend like 20 minutes each, walking, sitting daily, and within probably a month or so, they can collect 10 hours of practice. And when that happens, they realize, okay, now I understand the practice even a little bit better. And when they reach 10 hours, you have to tell them, okay, now you somehow reach 100 hours of practice, walking, sitting, right? 100 hours might take few months, but somehow you continue and gather 100 hours. And when they reach 100 hours, you have to encourage them to do at least 1,000 hours. 1,000 hours might take few years even, but you have to somehow get there. Then when they reach 1,000 hours, you have to tell them, okay, you have done a great job reaching this milestone. Now continue the same process and reach 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours, it might take few decades. But if you simply do your daily practice and if you simply continue, persistence is important. If you simply continue, then one day you will reach that milestone as well. Right? So it's a long, tiring, painstaking process. But that's how you can really understand the proper way to experience the world. Otherwise, we try to figure out these things through answers only. We ask a lot of questions. Newcomers, they come and in their meditation reports, you can see a lot of questions are there, theoretical questions are there. They are asking about various aspects of Dhamma, various aspects of meditation, but never they have experienced the real practice. They talk a lot about faculties, how to develop faculties, but never they have developed faculties at least a little, right? So that's how many people deal with the practice, and they say, okay, what's the proper way to view the world? Is it the first extreme, seeing it as it exists, or is it the second extreme, seeing it as it doesn't exist? But the answer is something in middle. The answer is little bit confusing, but that's the correct approach. So if I simply tell you that this is the way to see the world, then it's my failure. I fail as a teacher because I am trying to explain something that is unexplainable, something that you should experience on your own. So we have to tell repetitively, these two extremes are there. That's the duality of the world. That's how our minds work. Binary, either 0 or 1. You have to figure out an answer. But that's not how the reality is. Right? So seeing this as a duality is the way of the mind. Seeing this as a duality is the way of the world. The world, it wants to be deceived. Right? The mind, it wants to be deceived. So seeing this as a duality is the way to be deceived. But instead, we have a different approach. We understand these two extremes, and we, through the practice, by simply experiencing, through the practice, we come to a different way of viewing the world. That's the way, that's the real idea. Now, yesterday there was a retreat and somebody was talking about few years of practice. Maybe, I think 5 years, he mentioned. A layperson doing a job, maintaining a family, but somehow continued for 5 years. And he is talking about how the practice is becoming more and more disorder. Initially, the practice was stable. Initially, he could maintain attention with the breath or the steps for a long time. The practice was running smoothly. Order was there. But now, the walking, sitting sessions, you feel that you have done hardly anything. You don't feel like you have achieved something. And it feels like more and more disorder. I was there, I was present, I was experiencing something. But at the end of the day, I don't have anything in my memory. I don't feel like I have spent a productive walking, sitting session. So that was the complaint that person was having. He was asking, Mante, what's happening to me? I don't know what's happening. I don't feel like this is the correct way, right? Even the meditation, we want to feel that the meditation exists. That's how we feel it's productive. That's how we feel that we have achieved something. The usual way of seeing the world, right? But at a certain point of your practice, you get to see how the order becomes disorder, how the meditation goes out of your control. And when that happens, many people, they think that this is some mistake. They think that my meditation is not working properly. And sometimes they feel fearful. What is the reason for that fear? Because your lifelong illusions are threatened. You have lifelong illusions about this world, about the self, about the mind. And when those illusions are threatened, you feel fear. You feel like you are going into an existentialism crisis. You feel lost. And that way, you think that there is something wrong with me. There's something wrong with the practice. But you have to understand, when the practice is changing, when the practice goes out of your control, that's a good sign. That's a positive sign, which will tell you now you are starting to see the world in the correct way. You are starting to experience the world in a correct way. Even as meditation, we try to maintain that duality. The world relies on that duality. So even as meditation, most of the time we try to maintain that duality. I'm sure you have seen those photos on YouTube or on internet about meditation, right? You go to one of those websites, stock images, and if you search meditation, you can see a lot of pictures. Even people share pictures saying that they have done a retreat. So when you see those pictures, you can see people, they are really meditating, right? They maintain their postures like a statue, and they have kind of a pleasant smile on their faces, and everybody is correctly meditating, really meditating, right? So those are the stock images as meditation. This is how you should be. You have to stay like a statue, right? Utterly fake. They are simply posting for a picture, that's all. Right? They know that somebody is taking a picture, so I have to stay like I'm really meditating. Right? So that's how the world sees even meditation. They see, okay, this is how we meditate. Right? Those images we have seen time after time, and in our heads, we too feel like this is how the meditation should be. Right? Order. Yes, at a certain point when you start in the beginning, that's how the meditation is. But if the practice works, soon this order becomes disorder. And when disorder comes, what happens? I'm sure if you are practicing If you have been practicing for a few months, you must have experienced this. Right? When the disorder comes, you lose the control of your body. You can't maintain your posture. It becomes twisted. The head comes down. Those type of various defects appear. And even the saliva pouring onto your lap. The eyes are tearing. So various kind of things happen in this body and it goes out of your control. Disorder comes. And it's not photogenic. If somebody takes a photo of such meditation, then they don't feel like it. They don't feel like this is meditation. You are not photogenic. Right? It doesn't appear good. You don't feel like sharing that type of a picture. But the true meditation, someday you have to understand this turns into disorder. And when that happens, you lose the control of your body. You lose the control of your mind. You can see how various mind objects, various memories are starting to flow. How the body goes out of control, how it starts to twist in various ways. And this is the real meditation that we want to experience. Because in those sessions, we are experiencing the correct way to view the world. You go into a sitting session, you go into a walking session, you spend 1 hour. You are sure that you are mindful, but at the end of the session, you don't have anything to prove that it was a success. You are walking, you are probably walking like a drunk man, and at the end of the session, you don't have anything to prove that you meditated. You did 1 hour of sitting, and you are sure that you are mindful during that time, but at the end of the session, it is blurry. Something happened, but there is nothing to tell. And that's the proper way to view the world. Something is there, but it doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't have any value. In other words, we can say it doesn't have any essence or anything related to an essence. You are experiencing something, but it's without an essence. You know you were there, but it's not worthy to remember it later. Right? So it's like, you are seeing a dream, but after waking up, you can't recall what you saw. In your head, you are sure that you saw a dream, but you can't recall it. That's how we should view the world. That's the noble way to view the world. So in this particular discussion, Buddha goes on to explain the two extremes, and he encourages us to see the proper way through the practice. The world usually relies on the duality of it exists or it doesn't exist. But these two duality, this way is wrong. It's an error to see the world this way. Instead, you have to practice and experience and understand the correct way, the noble way to see the world. So that's the idea for today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Bhante, for that wonderful talk. Let's all hope that we Don't self-indulge or go into self-mortification, go into extremes, and go in the middle path. With that said, it's my task to read the reports for today, but I have not received any reports to read. So if you share the screen now, thank you. So Nissarana Vanaya has prepared some guidance for you to practice mindful sitting and mindful walking. You can allocate a small time during the day and start practicing your mindful sitting and mindful walking, and you can submit your reports under the sections of walking and sitting. You can describe what you felt whilst walking and sitting, what you recognize as your walking and sitting posture, describe prominent sensations, what you felt, such as texture of the ground, pressure points of the soles, how the body weight shifted from one leg to the other. You can describe your incoming and outgoing breath at your nostrils. You can describe how your abdomen rose and fell. You can submit your reports to beginners@Nissarana, beginners@gmail.com, or send as a Google form. You can, when you submit your reports, Bhante will provide you guidance to further your practice. So as there's no reports to read out, can I please invite the participants to pose any questions that you might have about the practice so that you can get guidance from Bhante? It is your time to raise your Zoom hand and present any questions you might have. Looks like no one is raising their hands. Oh, no, there are two hands. Ashini, do you want to go first, Ashini? Can you unmute? I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Ashini. I can very faintly hear you. Maybe the others can hear you.
No, it's the same, Panchani. Ashini, I think you'll have to speak a little louder.
Mindful walking. Place on carpeted floor. Time 7:40 a.m. Duration 50 minutes. At the beginning, walked 6 times freely. Stood at the edge and observed posture as a pillar. Weight of the body was borne by heels, mostly. Clothes touched the body softly. Then walked, observing feet as left and right. Felt roughness and the hardness of the floor. Felt a bit cold underneath the feet. Thoughts streamed. Observed 9 footsteps in a length. Did a body scan at the edge after about 10 minutes time. Felt so drowsy. Started yawning. Tears appeared in eyes. Wanted to sleep on walking path after putting a pillow on it. That much sleepy, but did the walking until the allocated time was over. Mindful sitting. Place on a cushion in easy pose. Time 8:40 a.m. Duration 50 minutes. Sat and observed the posture as a pyramid. Thought, I am here right now, seated. Listened to sounds. Automatically attention was taken by the belly motions. Then noticed risings and fallings of the body separately. Risings were longer, fallings were shorter. Thoughts appeared and disappeared time to time. Did a body scan, felt sleepy, began to yawn. Did meditation as usual, but felt that I didn't do the meditation properly. That's all, Sainhasa. Thero.
Yes, thanks for presenting your experience. Now you can see even in the walking, at a certain stage it becomes like a drunken person walking, sleepy. All those difficulties come and you don't appreciate or you don't feel like it is productive. And even in the sitting session, towards the end of it, you have experienced the same, right? So after practicing, only these stages come, and we rarely appreciate that type of experience. But if you know real meditation, then you have to understand that the order goes into disorder, and you don't feel like anything productive there. But that's how the wet practice will evolve. Your whole foundation for your existence, it'll be threatened. That foundation will start shaking. That foundation will be threatened. And that's the way. And many people, they become fearful. Many people, they don't appreciate it. They feel like going back to the usual ways of the world, the usual ways of the meditation, which is simply seeing the world, seeing the meditation as it exists, right? But you have to get proper advice, repetitively discuss, share your experience, and with that encouragement, you can simply start to appreciate it. And it doesn't come in a single go. Instead, sometimes it comes for a certain period, then again it disappears. It goes on these loops or circles. It's like a spiral. Repetitively, it goes through various type of states, and eventually you will be led towards more and more disorder. That's the way. So people, they don't have to worry too much about being threatened, being fearful by this, because the change is gradual. The change is happening gradually. Even the drug addicts, they sometimes go into these type of experiences, chemically induced. And due to that, they sometimes their minds get broken, because chemically induced, they don't know how they have created the state of mind, right? But in the practice, we are following these steps, and through the steps only, we are experiencing these things, and we know how to come back to the usual way of life, right? So time after time, you go through many cycles, many rounds, and when you go through it, little by little, your whole belief system, your whole foundation will be threatened, will be shaken, but it happens gradually. Since it happens gradually, I'm sure you have the strength to accept it little by little.
Thank you, Bante. I have received another report on the chat. May I please read it out? Theruvan Saranai Bante. It disconnects from what is happening, and it is not a disturbance to what is going on. The time of staying disconnected is increasing, and then where it is not explainable. Again, time to time, it gets closer to the flow, if not fading stuff. Sometimes it goes with some of the fading stuff. No certain nature. It keeps changing from one to another, even though there is something not changing nature, like one, but is not able to express clearly. Theruvan Saranai. End of the report.
Yes, so you feel disconnected for a certain period. Again, you feel connected. You feel like, the world doesn't mean anything. It's not important. You get disconnected. Once again, you feel like chasing after the world. Right? So these states, they change repetitively. And at the end of the day, what we will arrive would be simply there is an experience, but it's not worthwhile. There's no real essence in this experience. And in meditation, sometimes we have this, we go to such states and you can see you are witnessing something, but that's not worthwhile. There's no real essence. The world becomes blurry. It is not colorful, or the mind doesn't appreciate or see the world as it exists, and you don't hate the world. The mind doesn't see it as it doesn't exist. Instead, there's a middle way, and there is a different way to experience the world. And there is something. In this practice, we are not saying there is no outside world. That's not the way. And in this practice, we are not saying there is a fixed reality in the outside world. That too isn't the way. Instead, there is something, but it's without real essence. You live your life, you go to work, you deal with your family matters, but at the end of the day, there is nothing that's worthwhile for you to remember. That's worthwhile for you to worry about. How wonderful that type of a day would be. Usually at the end of the day, we have many worries from that very day. This person said something bad, I got hurt, something didn't work out as I expected, my family members, they didn't perform according to my wishes. So at the end of the day, you are with so many worries, so many frustrations from that very day. But imagine spending a full day going to work, dealing with the world, dealing with your family matters, and at the end of the day, there is nothing really worthwhile for you to recall. You know that you have been there, you know that you spent the day, but at the end of the day, there is nothing worthwhile. There is none gone to the memory. Right? That type of a life would be wonderful to live. You live the life, you are there for the experience, but there is nothing worthwhile for you to carry forward. You'll be dealing with various matters and you'll be giving them proper attention, but there is nothing left for you to brought forward. Right? So that type of life would be a stress-free life. The stress, it usually comes either through the past or the future. Thinking about future events, planning them, getting anxious about them, or worrying about past, how things could have worked out better. Right? So that's the source of anxiety. That's the source of stress. And this way of living, you'll be there, you'll be spending time, and at the end of the day, there is no stress, no anxiety. That's the best way to live the life. Try and see.
Thank you, Bhante, for that valuable guidance. Let's all hope that we can live a stress-free life. I haven't got any more reports to read out. Is there anyone else that would like to raise their Zoom hand and present their question to Bhante? This is your time.
Chaya has raised the hand, Panchali.
Thank you. Thero
Oh, sorry.
Bhante. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Bhante. I was interested to hear you talk about building up on meditation hours to 10 to 100 to 1,000 and so on. This made me reflect that I have been doing just that on an app, and it kind of accumulates the hours, and there's a timer and all that. So as the years have gone by, I think I have identified with it, and I have taken it as a sort of an achievement to keep me going. And I really feel if I don't turn on the timer on that app, I feel that if I meditate without it, I feel that I should be turning on the app, something like that. So it's really kind of I've made a thing out of it. What would you? But I also think that there's a positive to it because it keeps me going. I want to kind of maintain that streak and so on. So there's a positive to it. But what would you advise at this point, Bante? Thank you.
Yes, so your question being is that when you make a thing out of it, when you feel like achievement, it's your trophy. So that very thing could become a hook. I think that's what you're asking. But
Yes.
that's okay. Because you know why? When you keep practicing, the very practice will lead the way. The Dhamma will show you the path, right? So gradually there'll be a day that you will directed towards a state where you don't appreciate or you don't feel like an achievement. It has encouraged you for many years and it kept you going. But if you keep practicing, the practice works and the practice will lead the way. The Dhamma will take you through the correct path. We have to have that trust, because if you are earnestly practicing, then the practice should show you the way, right? So these type of things, as long as it helps you to keep going, as long as it encourages you, you can simply use that. Even this program, it has been an encouragement for many people simply to join and simply to practice for a while. And even by doing the program, I have achieved many hours of practice over probably like 4 or 5 years, right? So it keeps me going. And it feels like, the very program feels like an achievement. The very program feels like a trophy. So isn't that a hook? Could be, but it kept us going. It kept us discussing about the practice. It kept us sharing about the practice. And eventually, the practice will lead the way. Eventually, the Dhamma will show you the path. We have to have that trust. One day, the practice will take us towards a different level of mind. That's the whole idea. So whatever encouraging, whatever helps, just keep that. Just make sure that you keep going, because this is a long, long journey, painstaking, tiring journey, right? So we have to have some encouragement in our life. Otherwise, without that, in few weeks, few months, we'll be forgetting all about the practice, right? So use whatever that helps you. You can use them. Just keep doing it. And at the end of the day, I assure you that the practice will take the lead. The Dhamma will show you the path.
Thank you very much, Bante. That's very helpful and encouraging. Theruvan Saranai.
Thero, sir.
Much merits. Thank you, Chaya, for your question. I can see that Bandula has raised his hand. Bandula, would you like to present your question?
Thank you.
Bandula, can
Yes, yeah. Sorry, Bante. This is about today's talk. So this two ends. So I just put it like there's a world within actually the way you look at it, or there's no world. So there's good or bad. So Is it so? It's about to explain it. So you should not say yes or no. So if you say yes, yes, so you go to one end, and there's no, this you go to other end. Um, so what my concern is, even the practice. Say if you progress in the path, or so you do. Say if the path also this, you think, oh yeah, I done this. So sooner you think about it, so you create something out of it. So even so you have to let go whatever you done it. Say if you go to the uh, sitting or start walking, so you have to totally clear whatever you done in the past. Totally clear whatever you think you want to reach. So you just explain it something like that, relating to the practice. So you just go the present moment. So there's nothing the future, nothing in the past. Thank you, Bhante.
Yes, so good, bad, yes, no. This is the way of duality. That's the way of the world. Even asking a question, we feel like either it should be yes or no. There is no other option. There is no other way, right? That's how the mind works. And as you mentioned, even practicing, it could become another way of creating something. I think even the previous question was related to the same idea, right? But our whole thing is that we say, okay, create something out of the practice. That's okay to create, because you have been creating worldly things, useless things. Now at least you are creating something out of the practice. So that we appreciate, that we encourage in the beginning. And as per the earlier discussion, the very practice that we are developing, it will take over. It will start leading the way. And that part, you have no control, you have no authority. You can't take the ownership for that part, right? As long as you feel like you are taking the ownership to the practice, there is a long way to go. When the practice takes over, when the Dhamma take over, you can't really own it. You can't claim ownership to it, right? Instead, you become Buddha's disciple. The Buddha is leading the way, right? So we reach a certain stage, and beyond that stage, you really become disorder, or the water, steady water becomes white water. And when that happens, you won't be able to claim authority, ownership to that practice, right? So initially it is good to have achievements in the practice. It is encouraging for us, but at a certain stage, it will go out of your control, and you won't be able to call or claim ownership to it, right? So initially, whatever helpful, we can use them. Make something out of the practice, and if you make it big enough, long enough, one day that very thing will start leading the way. Try and see.
Yes, Bhante. Thank you. Just one little thing, Bhante, I just want to ask you. So where's the defilement sitting in this situation? See, because the defilements, if you are not mindful, sometimes the defilement come and give you, it make you really hard. I know that even the defilements are there, or you fall into that, or you indulge with the defilements, still you go to the practice, it goes like smoothly, there's no difference. But the question is there any defilements? So we had to make any, we had to learn out of it with the defilements, or we simply just forget about it, whatever happened, happened. That sort of thing is right, or? Thank you,
No, as
Bhante.
long as you are owning the defilements, it will be a defilement. But if it's not your defilement, then simply the problem will be resolved, right? If there's an Indian yogi here, and he was doing some voluntary work, and next day he came and said, Bhante, I did some uprooting, and I was killing these plants, right? So I told him that it's not Buddhism. You are talking about Hinduism. In Buddhism, we don't feel like the plants, they have life. That's not our way of understanding. But if you thought that there is a life in the plants, and while thinking it, you'll pulled them out, then you are definitely going to hell. So I told him, you are going to hell because you were thinking that you are killing the living plants. That way of mind you had. So it's like that. Defilements, you feel like they have life. They are real. As long as you are thinking that they are real, as long as you are thinking that they have life, it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem. It becomes a hindrance. But if you simply realize that there is no life, then it doesn't matter, right? So you are the person who is giving life to the defilements. As long as you give life, it's a problem. But one day, when you simply realize, okay, these are lifeless. They simply won't be your defilements no more, right? So that's the change that will happen. Continue and see.
Okay, thank you, Bhante. Thank you.
Much merits, Bandula, for that question. It was very useful for all of us. Bante, may I just extend on that and just say the defilements are not a problem, but the world that expects perfection from you sometimes don't know what to say to them. Can you just maybe
Yes,
drop a line?
the worldly way of seeing things, they try to expect perfection, right? They try to make things perfect. That's the worldly way. And in this practice, we don't appreciate that. We say you can achieve a certain level, but you won't achieve perfection. We are living in a tilted world, right? 23.4 degrees tilted. So that type of a world, can we expect perfection? Even becoming an arahant, there'll be some underlying tendencies, leftover tendencies, they are called, right? They are called vasana. Vasana for your avasana, right? So even becoming an arahant, there'll be some leftover tendencies. So how can we achieve perfection, right? So you do your best, the rest, it's out of your control. The world can expect various things, but we are not so worried about the world. Instead, we are focused, we are worried about our own peace of mind.
Thank you, Bante. Much merits. Really hope we can all become Buddha's disciples and Buddha will guide us. I think we are ending our time. So if you would like to take over, please.
Thank you, Panchayani. Well, thank you everyone who shared their reports and thoughts. Right now, which led to an interesting discussion and a lot for us to think about later on. I would like to thank Venerable DhammaKusala Thero for his continued guidance. And with that, we have come to the end of the session. So on behalf of the organizers, I would like to thank Venerable DhammaKusala Thero for the continued guidance on this program, not forgetting the Chief Abbot of Nissarana, Vanaya, who initiated this program, Venerable Bhante Udayagama Dhammajiva Maha Thero. May these merits help them in improving their own practice as well. Thank you all who joined today, and also to the organizers who are maintaining and managing this program. As I say always, there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. So thank you to the wonderful team, and then much merits to everyone who participated with us today live on Zoom. And I can see there's some people watching us on YouTube live stream as well. So thank you very much. So I would like to end the session for the day, and let's see you all next week. Until then, wish you a happy, mindful week ahead. Thank you.